Hi, I'm Jelena Fleming and I'm doing Rendon's validation theory. I was inspired to do this theory because currently I am doing some projects that involve Rendon's validation theory. For example, I am working with the student and support services team on creating videos that will help freshmen and transfer students get to the help that they need. There are other projects that I'm currently working on that include Rendon's validation theory. I was going to do Holland's person environment theory, but after understanding that I'm already doing things in relationship to Rendon's, I had to switch my theory. So, and I'm more passionate into this one only just because I actually see that I'm doing something that is relative to a theory that I'm learning about. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this presentation. So on the agenda, I want to go over Rendon's validation theory and what that is. I also want to go over my argument with Rendon's theory, positives and some negatives of the theory, how Rendon's theory can be applied, and some of my own thoughts, and some of those may be stated throughout the presentation. So, Rendon's theory. Her theory is inspired based on the college experiences of traditional and non traditional students. So, what's going on here is the non traditional students feel that they may not be able to succeed academically, while traditional students feel that they would. And that was a concern on the non traditional side. And so, what we had to think is okay, how can we get them to feel that they can make it and succeed academically? Well, let's get them involved with college activities to give them the self esteem that they're missing. And so, Rendon's definition of validation, this is on page 39 of the Student Development in College book. And what it states is validation is an enabling, confirming, and supported process initiated by in and out of class agents that foster academic and interpersonal development. So, what that means too is this, because students in this case are being validated, this actually helps with building confidence and self worth within a student. This also, because of the fact that their confidence is being built and self worth, that their academic and interpersonal becomes richer as they get more confident. Um, some other things that Rendon mentions is how this theory can be applied during the early stages. And this is where one of the applications is going to be applied is the FYP, which is first year student or the first year program. And this is supported by the Student and Support Services, or also known as SAS. So that's going to be one application that I will be talking about in my paper. But this is big because SAS does use this all the time. As a matter of fact, one of the representatives, Dakota Scarlett, he works with the first year experience or the first year program, and everything that he does is based around this theory. For example, and I'll use this in my paper as well, we were working together on Lion Launch. And so, what Lion Launch is a one stop shop for transfer and new freshmen to get to know what kind of help and services that they have on Lindenwood's campus. And there'll be more applications that I'll describe as I get to that part. But that is one thing that I want to mention. And to go along with the powerful, this theory being powerful during the early stages. Also, another thing that I want to mention was the crucial for those who are in doubt. So, what she was saying on page 41 is that validation is most powerful when offered during the early stages, and I just went over that. But then also, validation is necessary for every student, but is particularly crucial for students who may doubt their ability to succeed. And the students in this kind of category, they could be first generation college students, part-time students, and even international students. So we want to make sure, or Rendon's theory makes sure that if those types of students are being validated, that they won't doubt about their academic success. And I want to go on to the argument. I agree that validation is very crucial among college freshmen. I think that's a good way this theory can be applied. College students coming in may be fearful of what they're jumping into because they're new, they may be lost, and that's okay. That's what those programs in SAS and even other departments, not just SAS, that can help college students feel like they are welcomed and they are valued and they are going to be supported. However, I'm also looking at this theory as, can it go further than just freshman students? So can this go further, such as the sophomore, junior, and senior students, even also faculty and staff? So then I want to go into what are the positives of this theory. And again, most of what I'm going to go through here is all relative to college freshmen, according to Rendon's theory. So the positives coming out of this theory is when they are being, or when freshmen are being validated, it builds up confidence, self-worth, self-esteem, and all of those kind of helping with retention. Especially when it comes to universities. They are competing against other universities and they want to try to figure out ways to hold students to their school or keep students at their school. So the big thing is retention. Also, another thing that Rendon mentions is the validating of agents that they have. So instructors are those types of agents that can help validate them within the classroom, even their own classmates, even other students, organizations, relatives, things of that sort that help keep them validated as they go through their first year. But then my negatives that I feel are, okay, so is validation really enough? And not even just after like freshmen, but like sophomores, juniors, and seniors. But if I go back to the freshman thing, is validation enough for them to stay at the university? So if the SAS, for example, if SAS had all these programs and whatnot, does that hold them at the school, or do they still leave anyway, even though they might have been validated? Does validation hold a student to the university, or are they just going to leave because, for example, and I could use this in my paper. Of course, there's a lot of activities when I first started going to school at Lindenwood in 2003. However, my first college I wanted to go to was SLU. So I had always had my heart desires of going to that school. But since Lindenwood offered me a full ride scholarship in swimming, of course, why not? I mean, college is kind of expensive. So if they're going to pay for it, no problem. Um, but after my first year of being at Lindenwood, I still wanted to transfer to SLU because that really was my number one choice in going to college at. And so even if I had been validated, was it even enough? And in that case, probably not, because I still end up going to SLU because that's what I wanted. So that's where I'm coming from when it comes to, is validation enough? And there might be other examples that are out there, but that is just one. And then the other one is like, what about validation among upperclassmen? And I kind of mentioned this a little earlier. Does it have to be just we focus on freshmen? I know they're new and we want to welcome them with open arms, but we can't forget about those who have already, been in the program, been at the university. Seniors, I know they're on their way out, but can they still be validated as well? And can we validate faculty and staff? I mean, I'm wondering if Rendon's theory can be applied to that. So I know Rendon's theory, she focuses on mainly the early stages, but misses the whole, you know, after the early stages. I feel like she kind of focuses on just the early stage. I didn't really see where it could be validated to upperclassmen and even like faculty and staff. And I know also her theory, like I might have said already, focuses strictly on students. And so those were things that were kind of my negatives that I didn't see throughout her theory that I kind of wanted to explore myself um, in this paper. So the applications of her theory, um, of course, I've already talked about the first year experience and some of the projects that I've worked on with the first year experience team. I also wanted to go into the new student orientation. I was looking at some of the events that they hold in new student orientation and how her theories can be applied, especially within that. Um, Especially some of the events that they have. Like I was talking to Dakota, he was saying that they have a scavenger hunt. Not only do they understand where things are on campus, but they have now a point of contact. They know who to go to if there's certain things on campus they need. This is validating them. This is telling the student that we actually care. We want you to know so that way you don't feel lost or any of the sort. And then, like, how can the applications of this theory validate, or how are other universities and colleges being, valid, or how are they validating people within college? How are they doing that um, as far as like what they're doing with the upperclassmen, what they're doing with faculty and staff? Um, how can this theory can be applied to faculty and staff? And how are faculty and staff and upperclassmen being validated? I also, when I look at staff, I'm thinking like departments and stuff. And so, can they be validated among like their supervisors? Can they be validated upon directors? How are these things, or how are staff being validated? Is the supervisor, taking the team out to lunch because they did a good job on a project and they were getting rewarded for that? Even faculty who may receive faculty awards and stuff like that. But how validation can be used with faculty, staff, and even the upperclassmen, such as sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And so I had mentioned this before. These are I'm just trying to look at how this theory can be looked at outside of just the early stages, even outside of students. I want to see where the validation theory can be applied to upperclassmen and faculty and staff. Like the first part, validating agents that maybe faculty and staff and upperclassmen have. So faculty and staff could be validated by higher ups, like I said, directors, provosts, presidents, stuff like that, just so we can keep them here. It is important that we do have validation among faculty and staff because they help run the school. I mean, if we don't have faculty to help teach our students, then what can we do? Same thing with staff members to develop all these wonderful programs for the students. But if people aren't being validated, it could, they could leave because of the morale. And that's also hitting the point of retention, looking at how can we, validate the hard work that the faculty and staff and even students are doing, but just looking outside of students as far as faculty and staff is concerned, and even like the first or the incoming freshmen. So those are my thoughts and my type of proposal that I'm looking at when using this theory, and my goal is to make sure that I find some supporting documents on how this theory can be applied even outside of the students, the first year students, but how can this be applied to faculty and staff? Because validation is important just as it's important to faculty and staff as it is to the freshmen, and same thing with the upperclassmen as well. So that is pretty much my presentation about validation theory and how I plan on applying it to my paper. I mean, there are probably other things that will be applied as I go through, um, but feel free to comment down below. Thank you also for taking the time to listen to my presentation.